I'm going to go through some stuff right now with you guys about how you can buy houses without using any of your own money. If you'd like the sound of that, give me a wave. Okay, I'm going to be giving you some really advanced strategies right now. And honestly, these strategies, if you put them to use, you're going to be shocked at what happens, because we talked earlier about property, and I explained to you that when you buy a house, you're not just going to get paid. You're not just going to get paid with rent. You're also going to get paid capital appreciation. So as the house value goes up, you're going to get paid in equity. Now, cash flow, i.e. the rent, this is fast. Let's say you get a rent to rent, or you buy a house and you rent it out. You're going to start getting rent straight away. This is going to pay the bills. Nice bit of income. But what makes you rich is when the value of the house goes up, the capital appreciation is what makes you rich. How many of you would actually like to get very wealthy over the next 5-10 years? All right, great. So the first goal is you do want to receive some instant income coming in. That's why I'm such an advocate for packaging and selling deals. You want to get instant income coming in. If you control a property rather than owning it, that's what Ricky's talking about. And by the way, today, I'm going to jump on the laptop real soon. And you're just gonna tell me some areas. You're gonna be like, Samuel, find a rent to rent in Manchester, and I'll do it like that. You say, Samuel, find me a lease option agreement in London. Boom, I'll do it like that. Samuel, find me a serviced accommodation in Bristol. Bang, I'll do it. And you can shout out the areas. You can shout out the towns. You can give me the strategy. I'll jump online. I'll show you exactly how to do it. Straight scratch, no pre-setup, nothing. So a rent to rent is when you just control a property. You're going to give the landlord a guaranteed rent, but then you're going to break the property up and you're going to put tenants in the house, push the rent up, and you're benefiting from cash flow. That's a fabulous strategy. I love that. We have a training program called the Never Use Your Own Money Again program. And on Never Use Your Own Money Again, we teach you rent to rent. However, the reason Ricky prefers lease options and the reason I've created so much wealth from lease options is because you get rent on lease options and you get capital appreciation as well. Let me give you an example. There was a guy who contacted me in 2009, and the guy said to me, he said, Samuel, I've got a house. I'm selling the house for £85,000. Would you be interested in buying the house? Now, if someone says to you, hey, you interested in buying my house? What are you going to say? You're going to have some questions, right? About the house, about the situation. Yes or no? All right, thank you. Yeah, of course. So I said to Steve, Steve, you want £85,000. What's the address? What's the situation? Tell me about the situation. How much rent would you get for it? What's going on? And Steve tells me the situation. He tells me that he bought the house for 95 grand. He bought it in 2007 for 95 grand. He says now it's 2009 and it's dropped in value. Now it's 85 grand. I said, interesting. I said, Steve, what are you renting the house out for? He said, Samuel, what I'm actually doing, he said, I did buy the house for my son to live in. My son was paying me $450 a month, which to be honest was below the market value. I could have probably got $550, but I put my son in. My son was paying $450. And I was like, okay. I said, were you making good profit? He said, not really. I said, have you got a mortgage? He goes, yeah, I've got a mortgage. I said, what's the mortgage on the property? See what I'm doing right now, folks? I'm asking loads and loads and loads and loads of questions. This is what you need to get good at. Most investors that start out, they'll ring up a landlord and the landlord will go, so what's your background then? How many properties do you own? Why are you interested in this house? Have you done this before? What kind of tenants will you be putting in? Blah, 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 blah. And you, the entrepreneur, will be answering the questions, trying to prove yourself to the seller or the agent. That's not how things are done on Samuel Leeds training. How things are done is you, the entrepreneur, are the person asking all the questions, because the person who's asking the questions is the person who's in control. How many of you are learning something? Give me a wave. All right. So I'm asking Steve all these questions. Steve says, well, Samuel, the mortgage outstanding is 81 grand. Now, straight away, I'm thinking, Well, if the mortgage is 81 grand, that's the mortgage outstanding. And all he wants is 85 grand. Well, when he sells his house for 85 grand, he's going to have to pay the solicitors, the estate agent, and pay off the mortgage. He's going to be left with about nothing. How many understand the situation? Anybody not? Okay, a couple of people not quite sure. So here's the thing, right? There's something called, which is really important, negative equity. It's the only kind of negativity in my life I like. Okay? I love negative equity. I don't like negative people. I like negative equity. Let me explain what that is. Negative equity is very simply where the outstanding debt on the house, the mortgage, is equal to or greater than the house value. If the mortgage is more than the house, you're in negative equity. So Steve, he's not quite in negative equity, but pretty much he's got no equity in the house. So I say to Steve, well, Steve, if your mortgage is 81 grand and you sell it and you're advertising it for 85, I said, I mean, you're not going to get much money in your pocket. He says, I know, yeah. I said, well, why are you selling it? He said, I'm selling it because the house is empty. My son moved out and I just want to get rid. I'm semi-retired and I don't want the hassle. I said, okay. I said, Steve, I could maybe offer you about 72,000. What do you think? I'm an investor. I need to make money. He goes, Samuel, I bought it for 95. Now I'm selling it for 85. My mortgage is 81. I can't drop the price a penny below 81. If you buy it cash tomorrow for 81, I'll accept it. That's the lowest I can go. Now, let me ask you a question, actually. In fact, can I get someone on screen? I want to ask someone something. Anyone volunteer? Can I get going then? I'll get Jibril at the top. Jibril won't.
Hello.
What's happening? You okay, Jibril?
Yeah, you?
Yeah, good. So, all right. So, cool. How old are you, buddy?
17.
Yeah, 17. All right. Do you understand what negative equity is?
Yes.
Explain it to me.
So negative equity is when the debt / mortgage is equal to or greater than the value of the house.
I love it. Okay, cool. So if you were Steve, right? Or even I'll ask you this way. If you were advising Steve, what do you think the best thing for Steve to do would be in this situation?
Keep the house.
Keep it. Why?
Yeah. Because if he's selling it, he's not really going to make any money. So I'd say probably keep it, try renting it out or doing something else with it.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. You know what? You're absolutely right. So give Jibril a hand. Give him a hand. Okay. Now listen, why do I get Jibril to say that? Because if a 17-year-old property investor can clearly see that, hey, just keep it, how many of you think that you should just keep it, keep getting the rent, and wait for it to go up in value? Yeah, give me a wave. Okay. Now, here's the problem with trying to do clever deals, lease options and rent-to-rents. If I try and pitch him on a lease option agreement right now, he's going to get resentful. He's going to be like, oh, man, I might just keep it. So what I'm going to say to Steve, and what I say every time, I said, Steve, first things first, what are your mortgage payments each month? He says 145. I said, right. So, Steve, you told me that your son was paying you $450, but that was a cheap rent. You could have got $550. He said, yes, sir. I said, then why don't you put another tenant in and keep receiving your £400 a month? It's a terrible time to sell the property. Just hold on to it. It's going to go back up. But, Samuel, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to keep it. I don't want this. I'm worried about this, blah, blah, blah. My wife wants to sell it. You see, here's the thing. Some people make decisions based on emotions and not logic. Even some of you guys, when I made the offer, I was like, hey, 995 deal selling masterclass. Some of you were like, oh, man, I don't know. And maybe you're fearful and your fear stopped you taking action, even though your logic was like, it actually does make sense. How many of you know I'm talking about? Give me a wave. Give me a wave. And it's the same way. Steve, he knows the best thing to do logically is to just take action to rent it out, to keep it. But his emotions, his fear, his wife, his upbringing is just like, I just don't want it. I bought it for my son to live in it, and my son's moved out, and now I'm upset and I'm emotional, and I just want to get rid of the house. Now, if Steve wants to get rid of the house and he's emotional, I'm offering Steve to keep it. He doesn't want to keep it. So I just said to Steve, I said, Steve, how about this? I said, how about instead of me giving you 81,000 for the house and you taking that 81 grand and immediately paying off your mortgage provider, whoop, and then you're left with nothing. I said, that's okay. That would be good for you. But I said, I don't want to give you 81 grand. And to be honest, no one wants to give you 81 grand right now because it's 2009 and the housing market is a bit stiff. So I said, how about I'll give you 81 grand, but I'll give it you in 7 years to give the market chance to recover. However, right now, today, I'll take on complete responsibility of the property and I'll become the landlord and I'll pay the mortgage payments direct. Steve, how does that sound? Now, in Steve's mind, he's thinking, well, hang on a minute, it's going to give me no stress, easy peasy, I'll get the same money as I want anyway. Is it a pretty decent option for Steve, do you reckon? Pretty decent option. However, what's Steve going to say? Steve's always going to say no. He's not going to want to do it. Even though logically for Steve it makes sense, he's not going to want to do it. And why is that? It's because of how you word the offer. So here's how you word the offer. So you're going to say, Steve, I may be able to offer something like this. I'll buy the property off you for £81,000. However, I'll pay you in 7 years' time because we need to give the market a chance to recover. However, right now, I'll take on the mortgage, take complete responsibility of the property and become the landlord. Steve, how does that sound? That's the closing statement. How does that sound? Now, at this point, if you word it just like that, Steve's not going to say yes. He's also not going to say no. He's going to have loads and loads of questions. He's going to say, well, hold on. How does it work? Can I see a copy of the contract? What is a solicitor involved? What happens if you don't pay me the mortgage? What happens if this? What happens if that? Steve's going to have loads of questions. Now, at this point, when Steve has all these questions, you're going to say to Steve, Steve, why don't you sleep on the concept and speak to a solicitor about all your legal questions and then give me a call back if you're interested in going ahead. In fact, I've used a solicitor for deals like this before. His name is XYZ Solicitors. Here's his card. Have a chat with him. Anything you need from me else, here's my email. Here's my number. Give me a call. Now, does that sound like a pretty reasonable proposal from me? Yes or no? Yeah. Now, I offered this to Steve, and I'm thinking about it when I got home. I was thinking, is Steve going to say yes? He's going to say no. What's going to happen? Steve contacts my solicitor. Steve calls me up a week later. He knows more about lease option agreements than I know. He's literally picked the brain of my solicitor, gone over all the ifs and buts. He calls me back a week later. He says, Samuel, I'd like to go ahead with some heads and terms. Can we get this? Can we get this all drawn up? It sounds good. Now, from Steve's perspective, 2009, he's having the property just off his hands. He's getting his mortgage paid. Emotional release of the property. From my perspective, I stick a tenant in on day one because I market the property before I even get the keys. I stick a tenant in for $550 a month. I'm paying the mortgage of $145. That means I'm making £400 gross profit. Call it 325 after I've paid my bits and bobs. So I've got like $325 a month every month. 7 years later, I have the option to buy the property for £81,000. And that option is registered with Land Registry on the title deeds. 7 years later, I have the option to buy it for £81,000. And I'm going to use the deposit is going to be all of those 325s for the last 7 years. Right? Because if you look at this, look, 325 per month times 12. I'm getting 3,900 a year. Times that by 7, I got 27 grand after maintenance management. So I got 27 grand after 7 years. So I go back to the house. I've got the option to buy it for 81 grand. Now, after 7 years, the house is worth 125. This is in Block Switch, by the way, Warsaw near Birmingham. So now I'm buying the house for 81 grand, but it's worth 125 after 7 years. Ka-ching! I'm using the money that I've saved in deposit money to buy the house. It's a no money down deal. The only money I had to pay down was a £1 option fee initially to make this legally binding. And secondly, £750 on solicitor fees. That's it. That's my first lease option agreement. Do you guys like it? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that was my first deal. Now, after I did that deal, I'm thinking, maybe I could go do another one. Maybe I could go do another one. So I started building my portfolio as a teenager with lease option agreements. And what I found was when I started deal selling, packaging and selling deals, sometimes I'd come across a property and the property might be, I don't know, on the market for 60 grand. And I'd notice that property's been on the market for ages. And I'd go around the house. I'd say, what are you trying to sell? Oh, we need to sell. It's empty. We don't want it anymore. I said, okay, well, I'll buy it off you for £50,000. I would sell it for 50,000, but I can't because of the mortgage. I go, oh, what's the mortgage? They'd say the mortgage is 60. I'd go, well, hang on a minute. If the mortgage is 60 and you've got it on the market for 60, you're not going to make any money when you sell this property. They go, I know, it's annoying, isn't it? I go, how about this? I may be able to offer something like this. I'll buy it off you for 60, but I'll buy it in 7 years to give the market chance to recover. And in the meantime, I'll pay the mortgage. How does that sound? Boom, shaka, laka, raka. I just start picking up free houses like this. Why would you buy a house and put down a big deposit when you can just take it on a lease option agreement? You've still got your name on the title deed straight away. You've got the option to buy, not the obligation. If it doesn't go up in value, you walk away. If it does go up in value, you absolutely hit the jackpot, ka-ching-a-ring-a-ding. Like, that's a lease option agreement. You know,